Alright, so this is the first video that you'll be watching for your Math 107 notes. As explained on Sakai, you should have already printed out the PDF version of the notes, the PowerPoint slides, and either read through them or read through them up to this point. We'll be starting with section 1.1, example 1. Again, you're responsible for having read up through this point, knowing any terms and definitions that I might use in the example. If I use a term or definition that you're unfamiliar with, pause the video, go back and see if it's in the notes. If not, check the book, but I should only be referring to the things that are in the previous notes. Okay, so example 1 from section 1.1 is to use deductive reasoning to solve an equation. Okay, and we're specifically going to solve the equation x squared equals 2x plus 1. If you remember from algebra, and if you don't, that's fine. We're not focusing on the algebra part here. This is just an example that you may have seen in the past to kind of tie in the concepts that we're learning in this course. All right. So maybe you remember that this is called a quadratic equation. And I'm going to go ahead and apologize ahead of time for any time the screen jumps like that. I am writing on an iPad and casting to the computer screen, so you might see those jumps every now and then when my hand hits the screen. So we have a quadratic equation. And anytime we want to solve a quadratic equation, we can use the quadratic formula. It's the big scary one that you probably had to memorize at some point. Don't worry, you do not have to memorize it again. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So where do we get the a's, b's, and c's from? Well, it's from our original equation. A standard quadratic equation is in this form where all of our terms are on the left and there's a 0 on the right. So if I take my original equation and put it in that form, I have to move the 2x and the 1 to the left-hand side, but it means I need to change the sign. Again, if you're getting bogged down in the algebra, I wouldn't worry too much about it at this point. Just follow along the best you can. Okay. So then a is the number that's in front of the x squared. Well, if there isn't anything, it's not a 0. Remember that it should be a 1. The b is a negative 2. Let me just circle these as I go. A is 1. B is negative 2. C is negative 1. So I'm going to use that quadratic formula and fill in those values. Opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. And again, because the algebra is not the focus of this course, I'm going to go ahead and simplify this quickly. Once this is simplified, we should get down to the answer x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 2. If you recall, that is two distinct answers. X equals 1 plus the square root of 2, or x equals 1 minus the square root of 2. And those are the solutions to the equation x squared equals 2x plus 1. So the question here is, what does that have to do with what we're learning now? Why did we go through all this? In order to solve that problem, we applied a general rule to a specific case. We applied the general quadratic formula, it's general because we can use it for any quadratic equation, to this specific quadratic equation. That is what deductive reasoning is. Okay? The application of a general statement to a specific instance. Again, the general quadratic formula was used to solve the specific equation x squared equals 2x plus 1. So while you didn't know it, in the past when you were solving quadratic equations or even linear equations, something just like 2x plus 1 equals 7, we were using deductive reasoning to solve those problems.